Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nick Niblick. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G draft strategy. And in this podcast, I am going to be doing some mock drafting, showing you how to exploit the current Yahoo ADP landscape. Let's get it. Welcome in, everybody. D-Dubs in here. Let's get it. Shifting Shapes, all about the biz. You love to see it. I'm already in a mock draft here. I'm going to be doing two mock drafts, actually, kind of back to back here. So keep your eyes peeled. You can join in the second one that I'll be in. My turn is next. Basically, I wanted to get this one in without the benefit, I guess I should say, of other people being in here. So I'm on the clock here, and there's a lot of things that I like to do in this spot. I want to see if I can actually push Kaprizov around the turn here. I'm going to go ahead and take the left wing, right wing in Matthew Tkachuk here. See if I can shoot the moon here. It would be fun. You have to, when doing this mock draft, you have to kind of put yourself in the mindset of these categories a little bit. So there is that aspect to it. But even still, I do think that the ADP in Yahoo is kind of all over the place. I mean, obviously, you got goalies way up here. That's something that if you've followed any Apples and Genos content, you know we're not going to be doing any of that. So I'm going to see how this plays out, see if we can get our boy Kirill Kaprizov to come back, start out Chuck Kaprizov. That would be the ideal start here. If not, there's still lots of players that I will be plenty happy to have, but there are some just wild things that you can make happen in some of these rooms, and so I'm going to try to shoot the moon here and do it for you all live. There he goes. Unfortunately, not going to happen. We've got, who is that? Brennan. Brennan, you're too sharp for your own good, my friend. Yeah, obviously you still got Makar, you still got Panarin, you still got Hughes. And some people that I would push up into this range go much, much later in this range. So I think at the very least I'll be able to get one of those. So I think I'm going to be pretty happy regardless. But yeah, I'm pretty interested to see what kind of team we can build. I've done, I don't know, 3 or 4 maybe mock drafts at this point. I personally don't think that mock drafts are super helpful other than to just like get you in the mindset, see how the room looks, and see what the ADP landscape is looking like, how the players are ranked, see what you might be able to get, what players you might come up in certain rounds, because no matter what draft you're in, the ADP will have some sort of anchoring effect, where people will be really hesitant to just go way down the list to draft someone. You'll see that in pretty much whatever room you're in, and so you can kind of still exploit the ADP even if your room is sharper than just the average mock draft room. Jack Hughes going at 14th, that would have been very nice if he had made it all the way down. He doesn't, but I'm pretty into Philip Forsberg here. There are still other options that I like a lot here. You've got Evan Bouchard, who I really like. You've got Roman Josi, who I really like. Yeah, there's still plenty of really, really strong options in here, but Philip Forsberg absolutely crushes this format across the board. He crushes shots, crushes hits, crushes power play points. Plus minus should be good. The goals, the assists, it should all be there. And so Philip Forsberg to add to Matthew Tkachuk feels like a pretty strong turnaround. Establishing a baseline of just production across the board feels really good. While we wait for our pick to come back around, let's dig into some comments. Blake's in here paying me compliments already. Man, Blake, we got to talk about this. I've been we talked to each other for like 4 hours over the weekend, talked about fantasy hockey, and then probably talked for another hour or two on either side of that. So, come on, man, just we got to be for the people here. Toronto Dave's in here. #0G. Leadbang, is Yossi Dahlin too wild for 12-13 in Cacupful? Well, Cacupful's 14 teams, so it'd be like the 14-15. I assume you just mean like at the turn. I think there's probably still going to be a few players that I prefer to Darlene at that spot, like a Forsberg probably. Yeah, I don't think I would go to defenseman. It's just a little bit of an unnecessary lean into defensemen in my mind. It's not that I think they're necessarily terrible picks in that range. You can make some arguments about the value over replacement of the defenseman and all that to push them up there. But I do think that from a structural perspective, I don't want to be tied into two defensemen right off the top of my draft. Justin asks, who would you rather in a points league between Cooch, Dry, and Pasta? Assuming that it's a pretty high point weight, I would go Kucherov there. I think I mean, you saw it last year, right? Kucherov can absolutely be that guy. I don't think Stamkos leaving absolutely destroys him by any stretch of the imagination. Brandon says, thanks. My draft is on Saturday. Hopefully, we can help you out here. I'm trying to keep an eye on my draft slot coming up. Dylan says, I think the main thing for mock drafts is so people know how to use the app. People often leave it and auto pick their first pick or two because they haven't bothered to learn. Yeah, I think that is a valuable portion of this for sure. Nickname says, Blake is right, guys, a hot muffin. Well, if everybody's saying it, it must be true. Brennan says, oh, show us the calves. Yes, Blake has been spreading some unwarranted rumors about my calves. Brendan says that must be right, Dylan, about the mock drafts. And Josh is here. Just got here. What's your roster like so far? You can see it over here on the right. I've got Kachuk and Forsberg. I like the left wing, right wing that Kachuk brings. You can make an argument for a lot of the other guys. But if I am going to draft kind of according to Yahoo categories, I think Kachuk fills them out really nicely. And getting these two guys who do that off the top makes me feel really solid that I can go in just about any direction from here and be pretty happy with it. Evan Bouchard, if he gets past Robert here, will absolutely be the pick. I've got to turn this to skaters. I want to see all these. Yeah, I didn't think he would make it back, but Bouchard would have definitely been the pick. Gensel is a good pick here. Hedman is a good pick here. I love Hedman in the third round as well. Svechnikov fills out categories. We could keep on leaning into that. Tage Thompson. Tage, I think his ADP is 48. I think I can push him around the turn here, and if he doesn't come back, I'll still be okay. I think I'm going to go for the defenseman here again, keeping some eligibility. Yeah, he went off my queue. That's why you build a queue, so you can get the guys you want off the queue as well. Yeah, just keeping the positional flexibility early on. I really do think that that's pretty key, especially when you don't have a strong take position player wise, right? If you're saying to yourself Gensel versus Hedman versus some other players, they all kind of feel similar to you. If that's where you're finding yourself, then probably what you should be doing in that case is you should be just looking at your team and saying, what sets me up with the most flexibility moving forward? Is that the winger, so that you can draft your centers late? We've been talking a lot about how, like every year, you can draft some centers late and you're gonna be pretty happy with the results. We'll get some auto picks in here. Finally, the goalies start to come off, so we love that. Barkov goes. That's a bit more where Barkov should be going, in my opinion. Yeah, some of the drafters, the people who are actually in the room, are actually drafting some good players here. It's actually like it seems like a relatively sharp room. We've got the goalies going later, I think, versus their normal ADP, so that's kind of nice to see. Shesterkin at the 310 was the first goalie, and that's not usually what you'll see. This is going to be Tage Thompson for me. The center right wing is an added nice touch. You can move him over to right wing if you need to. You can play him at center, just the extra flexibility there. Again, going to crush the goals, assists. Power play points should be back up this year. Shots on goal should be borderline elite. I think he's going to be closer to 300, quite honestly. And also, I think the hits are going to be a little higher. The plus minus might not be terrific, but it might be a little better under Lindy Ruff as well. All right, let's get back to the comments. I'm running behind. Nickname, I'm in an 18-team league, drafting second, taking McKinnon. Should I focus on points, picking like 38th, or like Meyer Ovi to pad some stats for shots on goal and hits? It's a fair question for sure. I would try to not push you in either direction. especially with the early picks. I don't think that should be how you decide your early picks, basically, I guess is what I want to say here. Your early picks should be really just the player you believe in the most. You want to build in that floor early, those guys who you know are going to be absolute studs. You're not going to be mad about what they bring to the table, what they bring to your team. This is going to move around quickly as people start to drop out of this room and we get more auto drafts. But that's what I would say. I would not focus on the stats so much as the players in the first couple of rounds, I guess is the biggest takeaway I would give you there. Dylan says Blake is right on everything except his low projection on Big Kuzi. Yeah, we gotta talk to that man about that. My turn is coming up, so we will get back to the comments after I make that. I mean, if Svechnikov comes all the way back around here, we will take Svechnikov. Yeah, he just covers all these categories so well. You kind of have to take him here. Fits in with this team. The left wing, right wing, all of it just lines up to make Svechnikov a smash here. ADP is 44, and I'm getting him here at 57. I know that's probably because some people sorting by the expert rank on Yahoo, but yeah, I'm not going to let him fall any further. Absolutely worth the pick there. Would like to get into another defenseman here to continue to build that flexibility, but there are some other players that I absolutely love in this range as well. So I won't be too mad, you know, whichever way it comes. The problem with the ADP being so different from the X rank, especially in these auto draft rooms, is that I believe the auto draft works off of X rank. So you kind of have to figure out where who's going to get auto drafted based on that, and then kind of switch back and forth. The the actual drafters, the people who are live drafting, are more likely to go off ADP, I think, but the auto drafters are more likely to go off X rank. So in your actual drafts, I think you're more likely to be closer to ADP, but that can vary room to room. Some people don't even know how to swap between these things, so they might not know. This is really tough, honestly. I love Timo Meyer and I love Dougie Hamilton. Meyer's buried in X rank, so I'm going to take the chance that he comes all the way back and go with Dougie Hamilton here. Hamilton, again, crushes these categories. You hope for the power play for him to supplant Luke Hughes and be a big part of the power play this year. Even if he's not, I think he crushes shots. He's still probably going to push 60 points even without top power play all season long. So I absolutely love Dougie Hamilton this year. Vincent asks, can you rank Stutzla, Meyer, Thompson, Bedard? I mean, it would really depend on your format. Meyer, obviously, Stutzla as well, better in bangers. Thompson, Bedard, a little bit better in more point setups. If I'm just going to go with some sort of average point setup with some bangers weight, then I would go probably it would be Thompson, Meyer, Stutzla, Bedard. I think Thompson and Meyer are a tier, and then Stutzla and Bedard are a tier. You could switch each of those and those two tiers around, and I wouldn't fight you too bad on that. Justin says, who's your sneaky goalie that could be a league winner? I like Philip Gustafson out of Minnesota. I mean, I don't like any of them is the correct answer. I like Tristan Jarry this year to have a little bit of a bounce back. I don't think Pittsburgh's quite as bad as everybody believes they are, so Tristan Jarry might be an answer there as well. Ledbank says, I'm running a full 0G for the first time, so could couple settings, Ingram, Urson, Gus, Lindgren. I think maybe Ingram and then Gustafson and then Lindgren and then Urson. That's final answer. Timo Meyer might make it back here. Cole Caulfield is another player I love. Mackenzie Weegar in this format is a monster. So that's also one that you have to look at, in my opinion, even if the power play points are not that good, even if the plus minus is pretty bad this year, the shots and the hits are going to be absolutely electric along with good point scoring. But I think I have to go with Timo Meyer. It's just too good. Left wing, right wing again. All that flexibility is something that I absolutely love. I have to go Meyer here. I do think there's some more defensemen that I'm going to be happy with beyond Mackenzie Weegar, although I would be really happy if he came back around the turn here. That would be the perfect setup for me. As I'm doing this, I'm letting the letting the centers fall. There will be plenty of centers further down that I'm really happy to add to this team later on. So I am consciously filling out my left wings and my right wings, getting the positional eligibility, keeping this team really flexible in terms of the roster. There goes Uyghur. Unfortunately, we won't get him. I'll add Riley. Riley fits this format decently. I think Montour is decent in this format as well. Who do we got in terms of defenseman? I would like this pick to be a defenseman. Carlson might not have a great plus minus. The hits is tough to stomach in this format where he just doesn't do that. We do have later options like Werenski and those guys that we could get into. Ekblad's down here. Matheson is absolutely buried in this, and he's a tremendous pick that late. So it's not like there aren't options later on that I can get behind. So I don't feel like I have to now that Uyghur. It does feel like a bit of a teardrop off. Riley's still a great one. So that's definitely still an option. Riley's at the top of the queue here. I'm just going to take a quick look through to see if there's anybody else kind of jumping off the page. If there's any point scores that I'm a little bit excited about, Slavkovsky's an interesting one for the hits as well. He absolutely crushes. If his plus minus was any better, he would go much higher, I think, in this format. Alex Tuck is buried, but he might even come all the way back around. I think we'll go with Riley here, just to keep with the structure that I want to keep. I'd like to be in Yahoo specifically. I do like to have the defenseman figured out, have my 4 defensemen pretty locked in. You can get really solid defensemen absolutely locked up. They fall in the drafts, they get them into places where you feel really good about having them, and you can get, especially if you're fading centers well and you're able to leave your center spots open, you can still get terrific centers very late. There's a bunch of winger picks that I like really late as well. So I really don't feel like you're giving up much by taking your defenseman, like getting all 4 defensemen in the first, in the first like 10 rounds, you could say. If you have 4 defensemen by 10 rounds, I think you're probably going to be pretty happy in most cases in Yahoo. And then you can kind of just leave it at that. You don't need a 5th defenseman. You can just kind of leave it with 4 defensemen. Obviously, you might be streaming defensemen here and there throughout the season, but I think that's the way to run it. Hollywood's in here saying Tyver. Wow, that's an inside joke for the people. Dylan says Justin Kemper, if you can get him late, that team shelters their goalies well. Yes, Darcy Kemper, terrific 0G pick late as well. That is one of my favorites. I'm not sure actually. I think if I remember correctly, he's going actually a little bit higher on Yahoo. Is he in here? Yeah, he's going 105 in Yahoo. So like before the 10th round. And yeah, at that point, it feels like you're kind of paying for what you're getting. You're supposedly getting with Kemper, and so if he falls in your drafts, then absolutely. If he's not really falling in your drafts, then I'm not as excited about that. But if you can get him late, for sure. I'm back on the clock here. I've got some options here that I'm absolutely in love with. I think I'm going to go ahead and take Alex Tuck here, move him up. I do see the X ranks a little bit higher than some of the other players here, so I think I take Alex Tuck here. If you've been paying attention to our content, you know that I absolutely love Alex Tuck this year. And then I think I will go for a defenseman here on the wraparound. My defensemen aren't big time hitters at this point, but I have a lot of big time hitters in my forwards. Meyer, Svechnikov, Forsberg, Kachuk, all big time hitters. So I feel like I'm kind of compensating in that way. There aren't any. I'm not going to draft Jeremy Lauzon early on. I'm not really into that. I can always draft, I can focus a little bit more into hits with my later forward picks as well. So I'm not feeling like I have to go out and get I don't have to focus down on Chris Letang to get the hits or Darnell Nurse or something like that. You definitely can. I'm not saying those are bad picks where they're going by any stretch. So I'm not going to fault anyone for doing that, but I don't feel like I'm pushed into it because of how well I did early in getting tons of hits from my top forward picks. So that's another reason that being flexible and getting those multi-cat studs early on can really help you be flexible later on and let you feel like you're just taking the player you believe in the most later on. Ekblad is a good pick here. Matheson, I think, is the better pick, even with the plus minus. I've been pretty choice with my plus minus. Like, all these players are from good teams, with the possible exception of Thompson and Tuck. And so I feel pretty good about the plus minus situation on this team already. And so I do feel like I can take a Matheson, even if I do take a bath on the plus minus there. The points upside so huge. The shots on goal should be there. The power play points should be there. The hits are nothing to write home about. But I think that when you're getting this kind of points upside from a defenseman in the 10th round, you should just take it. All right, let's get back to the comments. Concept says, Blake, is there a GoFundMe for the calf reduction surgery yet? Yeah, Blake, let the people know. Brendan says, I go Thompson, Meyer, Stützle, Bedard, but damn, I want all those guys. Yeah, can't deny. I'd be interested in every single one of those guys. Justin talked into Dylan there. Mitchell says, I've been noticing in competitive leagues, Jack Hughes and Kaprizov are going before Panarin and Nylander. I would say as they should. Sebastian says, doing the Thompson, Meyer, Stützle, Bedard in that order. Yeah, I don't hate that order. Josh asks, how'd you sort it as ADP instead of expert? So you can click on any of these columns. You can sort by goals, you can sort by assists, you can sort by expert rank, you can sort by ADP. So that's how I do it there. Just need to do that. Consensus was on that one as well. Shifting Shapes says, my biggest worry for Gustafsson is Marc-Andre Fleury chasing second all times games played plus Wallstedt in the wings. Yeah, there's variables for sure. I'm not telling you that Gustafsson's going to be a season-long hold by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're asking me which players I like, that's who I like. So Drake Batherson makes some sense here. The hits, the shots, power play points, kind of fills categories there. That's a nice one. I've talked a lot about not being mad about grabbing Landeskog and just throwing him straight onto my IR. And so I'm definitely okay with doing something like that. Jared McCann is definitely a target for me this year. I don't think I need to grab him quite yet. But he's a huge target for me, as is Brian Rust. I think maybe Batherson here. Martin Nietzsche would be in consideration as well, but he does also kind of fit the I already have a center right wing, essentially, is what I'm trying to say here. So I think I'll go Batherson here, continue to fill out. It's left wing, right wing again, maximum flexibility. I've got 4 guys with left wing, right wing eligibility, so I'm absolutely loving that. I now have 6 wingers, and I can kind of lean into the centers now if I want to. I don't have to, but yeah, there's like Nico Hischier still here. This is what I mean when you get down here and the centers are still lined up. Lots of centers that you'll like. Let's take a look at the center onlys. Jared McCann, I think, will be the pick for me just because I'm so high on the player. But you could definitely, honestly, I should probably take Nico Hischier. I have 2 New Jersey Devils already. They are at different positions, Hamilton at defense and Meyer at left wing, right wing. I don't love having a 3rd Devil just because it kind of polarizes my lineup that way. Hischier goes. So I'm spared that decision. I will take McCann here. I don't want him to fall any further and get away from me, so I'll take Jared McCann. That feels good. Center left wing, so I get the eligibility going the other way, so I can move from center to left wing, and with Thompson I can move from center to right wing, and I can still take center only players late. Like there's still Bo Horvat, there's still lots of guys down here. Pavel Buchnevich, Brock Nelson, Nazem Kadri, Sam Bennett fits this format if you want to go there. Yeah, there's lots and lots of center players that are going to be very, very useful for your fantasy teams. Malkin is absolutely buried in ADP this year. You can even go that route if you want to. Adam Fantilli, one of my favorites, very late as well as a late streamer, so definitely plenty of options there. Let's see what's around here in goalies. Yeah, Yari, this is kind of the range, right? Yari, Ingram, who else is down here? Gustafsson's here. Decord I could get into a little later on. I'm thinking that Luukkonen might split some time, but if he's around here, I wouldn't be mad. I'm already making bets on Thompson and Tuck, so Luukkonen as the goalie bet is not the worst idea. But yeah, we'll see what comes back to me here. Let's see what we got. Dylan says, Nate, where would you draft Boldy? I'm especially in Yahoo where there are ADP values just all over the board. I am consciously trying to push players to my next pick if I think there's at least a decent chance that I'll get them at the next pick. So I will take him ahead of ADP, but I will not like just reach for him at the spot that I think he's worth. I will try to push him to a spot where I'm getting players and I'm getting Boldy. I'm getting the players earlier on and I'm getting Boldy. So I forget where his ADP is in here, but I do kind of anchor it a little bit relative to the ADP landscape that I'm in. I'm back on the board here. Landeskog is staring at me. I don't know if anybody's going to go out and get Landeskog. So I do think I could probably push him. I might be able to just go for center here or go for goaltender. Let's go with the center. Let's go with Kadri here. I think he is, yeah, just vastly undervalued. Happy to have him there. My first center only pick all the way down here. And what's this, the 13th round? So, yeah, pretty happy about that. And then when we come back around, I will consider Landeskog, or I might consider one of the goalies there. Get my first goalie. Wouldn't be too mad about that either. Let's get back to some comment. Oh, I'm going to be back up here in a second. Let's see here. T-Dub, if your league has face-off wins, does it change how far you fade centers? Yes and no. If your league has face-off wins, really the way to win is to take players who take face-offs but have winger eligibility. That's the way to get more face-offs, basically, than anybody else in your league. So you can still get face-offs from centers that are later on because there is still, there's still a finite number of centers. There's still more centers than any other position. They may get chased up a little bit more in a face-off win league, but yeah, I think it's fine to still fade centers, but you do have to prioritize winger eligible players who take faceoffs earlier on. I do take Yari there as my first goaltender. Yeah, just I think locking up some volume, probable volume. I mean, he's still got a big contract. I don't think they're gonna go to Nedeljkovic, but been wrong before. Happy to be wrong again about goalies. Ledbank says, I think Kemper won't qualify for 0G by the season start. The secret's out. Good chance for sure. Wanzuli says, my 0G target is the Leafs tandem or Gus. Yeah, I'm happy taking Joseph Wall in a lot of places. I think is Wall. I think Wall's ADP is up higher. I think he's already gone in this. Usually he's gone before I even start looking at goalies. So, but yeah, I would take Wall. I'm not taking Stolars because I don't think he gets the first crack at it. So he's at best like a half split with Wool, and at worst less than that. He could just be a wasted draft pick. So I'm not taking Stolars in my drafts this year. I will take Wool if he falls, if people are letting him come to me, and then I'll see how it goes basically from there. But yeah, I don't draft tandems together. I've talked about that a bunch, and I will talk about that again in the 0G episode upcoming. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. Mitchell asks, are you doing another mock after this one? I am. Yes, I will be doing another mock, and we'll find the one, and I'm sure it'll fill very quickly, so watch for that. Vincent says, tons of good centers falling late in competitive leagues. Thoughts on ranking Heischer, Lindholm, Horvat, Kadri, Scheifele? Again, without knowing a specific format, it's a little bit tough, but probably going Heischer, Scheifele, Lindholm, Horvat, Kadri. I don't know. They're very similar to me in a lot of respects. So I'm not, I won't be mad with any of them, basically. Dylan says 41 is a lot of games for Fleury. MIO. Yeah, I'd be shocked if Fleury gets to 41 games. I'd be shocked if he gets more than I'd be shocked if he gets more than 30 games this year, to be honest with you. Jonathan asks, what league type are you drafting for? I'm just drafting based on Yahoo here. I think you kind of have to if you're doing the mock draft scenario here. Otherwise, you're drafting based off parameters that nobody else is drafting off of, and yeah, I just think the whole charade of the draft kind of falls apart at that point. I think I will take Landeskog here. I was going to take Ingram if he came back there, but he gets drafted one in front of me. So I will take Landeskog. He'll go straight to my IR. But again, if I'm getting Landeskog here in the 15th round and I drop him on IR, whenever he's back, and assuming he's anywhere close, even if he's 70% of the player he was, assuming he gets time alongside McKinnon and Rantanen, he's going to be worth this pick and a whole lot more. So in my mind, that's honestly probably the best use of a late round pick is to draft Gabriel Landeskog for when he comes back. I guess I probably will take a goaltender with my last round pick here. We'll see who that might be. Right now I've Gustafson starred, but there are some others that I could do. Nobody that I'm super excited about, but that's the way of 0G. Libang asks, or sorry, it's not a question. I'm back on the clock. Gustafson's still here, so I will draft Gustafson, and that'll be the team. I'll finish up all. Actually, why don't I get into the next room right now before I finish up the comments? So this team, before I do that, I can read through my team here. I guess I'll just do it from the side here. My team is Thompson, McCann at center. It's Matthew Tkachuk, Philip Forsberg, Andrei Svechnikov, Timo Meier on the wings. Big time beefers on the wings here, really helping out this team. Victor Hedman, Dougie Hamilton, Morgan Riley, Mike Matheson at defense. I'm absolutely going to be crushing my opponents in the amount of points scored by this defense core. Full 0G means I have Yari and Gustafson as my goaltenders, and who knows how long they'll last in my team, but I'm not worried about it. Alex Tuck, Drake Batherson, Nazem Kadri, and Gabriel Landeskog are my bench players. Once we get into the league, I would put Landeskog on IR, and then I'd pick up another player, probably a player with a good first week schedule, and begin my streaming that way. Pretty easy way to start streaming by drafting an IR eligible player, drop them in there immediately, and pick up your first stream after the draft. So that's the team. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it showed you a little bit of how you can exploit Yahoo's ADP. Yeah, drafting for the format, getting all these guys early, the Kachuk, the Forsberg, the Svechnikov, the Meier, really setting the baseline there with both with high-end point upside, but also filling all the categories. And so I'm not really feeling forced into drafting for specific categories later on. I can actually focus on taking the best players available and keeping my roster flexible throughout the draft. Really, really key when you're thinking about your drafting moving forward. All right, so I'm going to close down this draft. I'm going to jump into a upcoming draft. I would like to jump into a 12-teamer here. I'm going to wait for this one to fill, and then there'll be a new one that populates, and then I'll jump into that one right after. This one's still 5 minutes out, so when this one fills, yeah, there it is. So I'm going to jump into this draft here. Dump and chase 2217421 if people want to jump in with me. I'm sure we'll fill this up real quick, but yeah, why don't I go back to the comments while we wait for this draft to show up. If you want to jump in, you got to do it quick. Dump and chase is the mock draft on Yahoo that I'm in. Okay, so Ledbank said, I love them all if you're fading center. This is going back to the Heischer, Lindholm, Horvat, Kadri, Scheifele. Says Scheif and Kadri are sneaky points plays, and Winnie has a great schedule. Horvat fills cats amazingly. Yep, I think they all have their strengths. If you're in a cats league, you may want to draft based on your cats. We have filled the mock. Hopefully everybody was able to get in. Sebastian says Scheif is huge for a late C only for sure. Dylan says, who the frick is the Yari? Tristan Yari? Is that not how you say his name? That's how I've always heard his name said. I'm pretty sure. Von Zuli says, oh, interesting about tandems. I was not aware. Yeah, I could get into it for a second, I guess. Basically, my issue with tandems is I have less of an issue, I should say, with tandems in categories leagues, especially categories leagues that are more rates-based, the way that Yahoo is, goals against average, save percentage. If you're getting a tandem on a good team, you probably feel pretty good about the results you're going to get there. But the problem that I have with tandems is that you're limiting your upside, because the best case scenario for any goaltender is that they outstrip the other member of their tandem, their goaltender crease. You want your goaltenders to play really well and to absolutely dominate and to get tons of volume and play really well. That's the best case scenario for any goaltender, right? The problem with the tandem is if either of your goaltenders do that, that definitively means that your other pick was a bad pick and they're not doing anything for you. And so I know people say like, oh, well, then I just dropped them. Yeah, you just dropped them, but also there's a middle case scenario, which is probably the most likely scenario in a lot of tandems, where both of them just kind of pinball back and forth. Some are good. One is good for a long time, for not even a long time, sometimes just a short time. One is good for a short amount of time, then they start to go downhill, the other one picks up for a while, they're good for a little bit, and they just ping pong back and forth, playing well and playing poorly, and you just feel like you have to hold both the whole time because you're so invested into the tandem now, and the whole point of rostering either player was having both. And so I think there's a lot of cases where you draft a tandem and you wish that you hadn't drafted at least one of the players, and sometimes both of the players, and you're setting yourself up to hang on to both players long after you should have dropped one or both. So that's my biggest issue with tandems. Sebastian says 0G targets for me: Yari, Kemper, Gus, Montebo, Erson. Yeah, don't mind that. I've heard some talk about Fedotov, like taking starts away from Erson, like potentially even as a 1A there. So that could be interesting, something to keep an eye on for sure. See who Tortorella likes, I guess. But yeah. Nickname says pop the tart for the boys. Don't know if I'm going to be doing that here. Dreamsman says, how big of an ADP value is Tavares at 90 plus? Again, depends on your format, but Tavares should fill a lot of categories. Sneaky hitter, like 120 hits. I could check what I have him projected for, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's up around 120 hits, which is just phenomenal. And yeah, 70 points. Last year was a down year, but very confident that he's going to rebound from that this year. His minutes were declined under Keefe. I don't know if Brube will continue with that. I kind of doubt it. That's my personal take. I have him for 124 hits, 285 shots, 28 power play points, 76 points. Like, yeah, huge value, obviously, at 90 plus there. Mitchell agrees, massive. Tavares is a fantasy stud at that ADP. Dreamsman says, what's his right value? 50 to 60 ADP. Yeah, probably, considering he's center only, probably like a 5th to 6th round ADP would be more in line with that value, I'd guess. Yeah, that would be a guess, but that's what I would say. Anzuli says, that makes a lot of sense. Really great insights. Thanks. I believe that's about the tandem discussion. Vincent says, Cacuffle League, thoughts on when to draft rookies, e.g. Celebrini, Mishkov, McGrady, and Clark. Yeah. Celebrini, I think, is draftable. Mishkov, I think, is draftable. I don't think I'm drafting either of the other two. Until I see it. You know, if I see in the early lines that McGrarty's playing alongside Crosby, sure. Okay, now he's draftable. If he's playing in preseason on that line, for sure. Until I see that, though, I don't think he's draftable. I just think you're giving yourself... There's too many other players that I'm interested in that I know have a pretty good path to minutes, even in a 14-team league, in a pretty deep league like Cacuffle is. So I don't think he's draftable unless we have some insight that he is going to be played there. If he is going to be played there, then obviously all bets are off. But yeah. Brendan says, nice. I got in at my draft spot too. All right. That's good stuff. All right. Let's see what we got here. So I picked the turn here. I'm back at the 12 spot in this draft. I think I'm going to be able to show you a little bit of what I was talking about. So obviously this is a bit of family draft for A&G because I think the vast majority of the people in here are in the chat right now. So I think it's going to be an A&G draft. You're probably going to see the goaltenders faded a fair bit, as we do. But I think you're also still going to see this kind of anchoring effect I'm talking about. I don't think you're going to see players get drafted really far above their ADP. Like we talked about Tavares, right? His ADP is like 90 plus or something on Yahoo. We were just talking about his ADP should be a lot higher. Tavares is 99.7 ADP. We talked about his ADP should be a lot higher. I don't think in this draft that we'll see a player like Tavares get drafted in the 5th or 6th round. There's still that anchoring effect where people are more or less tied to what's in front of their screen at any given time. I know that I'm saying this to all the people who are listening, you know, maybe people will go a little bit more hog wild, but in general, I think you can still see the anchoring effect from the platform that you're on relative to the environment. So if the ADP says something, you should somewhat expect that your room should follow that. I am going to mute the draft sounds because they're absolutely terrifying on Yahoo. So yeah, if you're on Fantrax, then that ADP obviously is what you're going to be looking at. But I think there is that effect. Like I think it's just natural, and I think you're probably foolish to ignore it. If you're going to just strictly draft off rankings and ignore what the ADP is, you're probably passing up a lot of potential value because you may have your favorite players. We all have our favorite players, the players we want on every team. But there are other players who are really good values as well. So if you're getting a good value on a player and you're looking at the player that you really want, sometimes it is in your best interest to try to push that player to the next pick, especially if there's still other players that are really good. Maybe not exactly as good as the player that is your big time favorite, but yeah, I think that you should take into account the anchoring effect, but also play within that. Maybe there are some guys that you do want to reach ahead of ADP to get them and make sure they're on your team because they are good value according to my projections or whatever projections you're using, whatever the case may be. But you should still work within the environment you're given because that's how you extract the most value from the ADP environment that you're in. All right, so Brady Kachuk is here, JT Miller's here, Jack Hughes is here, Philip Forsberg is here, Roman Yossi's here, all my favorite guys. Jack Hughes, I think you have to draft here. I know he doesn't hit, and that's a problem for people, but he could also score 120 points this year, and I can't pass that up. JT Miller and Brady Kachuk are similar in a fair amount of respects. The shots on goal are so massive here. I do already have center left wing, which makes Miller a little bit more attractive. He gets better plus minus. Maybe I still think I have to go with Brady Kachuk here. So I'm gonna go Kachuk. Kachuk balances out the hits, right? From Jack Hughes. Hughes gives me the points upside. Kachuk gives me the hits there, and it all balances out. So this is an interesting case where I thought that Brady Kachuk was still, like a tier above JT Miller. And so despite the positional eligibility working out better with JT Miller for my team, because I was going to take Jack Hughes just because of the tremendous points upside, much better than any other player on the board. I still took Kachuk, even though it doesn't give me the most flexibility moving forward, just because I thought he was a tier higher. And in the early rounds, in the first 2, 3, 4 rounds, I really do want to be sure that I'm drafting the players that I absolutely believe in the most. I don't want to, you know, push a player up a tier into the try to make them as good as another player just because they play a position that helps me out the most. I'd rather fit the back end of my team around my stars than try to make my stars fit some preconceived notion, if that makes sense. Within a tier, sure, that's when positional eligibility and keeping that roster flexibility really does matter. But in this case, I thought that Kachuk was the clear next best player, and so I'm willing to take him there, even if he has the center left wing. Worth mentioning too, both these guys being center left wing, dual eligibility on both. It's not like I'm locked in at one position. I took like 2 center onlys. That would probably be a bit of a different discussion. But yeah, I think this is a good spot already. Vincent is in the chat saying any players in the Yahoo ADP top 50 that are on your do not draft list at their ADP. Yeah, we could go through a little bit. I mean, goaltenders. For sure, the goaltenders. I'm not drafting in the top 50. Let's see here. I mean, Chris Kreider at 37 feels really rough to me. I don't think I can get behind that one. Adam Fox is pretty high up here too. I think he'd be lucky to get to this 15 goal projection. Again, I know he had a good year last year scoring goals, but it was a pretty high shooting percentage. He doesn't really hit, so that's tough to deal with. Braden Point for this format, not so great at that ADP, but probably better in most other formats. So maybe it kind of evens out that way. Who else would I not take? I mean, once you get into the 40s, it gets a lot easier to stomach any of these players. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that's like a truly terrible pick in this range. I think I'd be okay with a lot of them. Let's see what will come back around to me here. Yeah, it's definitely a sharper draft with all the A and G regulars in here for sure. I'm not getting the major fallers. Roman Yossi goes where he should. Bouchard. Hughes got pushed up a little bit. I'm not sure I'm into Hughes in this format, especially that high up, but yeah, I can understand based on the season he had. I would take Dahlin comfortably over Hughes. in almost any format, actually. Hedman goes in the range where I think he should go. Thompson goes in a range where I think he should go. Kempe, that's early for me. I don't want to be doing that personally. Hyman falls to the 3-7. That's good value there. I'd be happy with that if I were you, Vincent. Let's see what I'm going to be looking at here. See what might be coming up. I don't want to tip my picks now. I know that the people in the chat are watching my screen here, so I don't want to tip my picks, but I'm gonna at least mentally put some guys in the queue at this point and see what I can do. I think there are some players that I'm a big fan of at this spot. I'm not gonna be mad if I get them here. Yeah, I think I'll be happy. You do start to see this is a range where, like, I do think the best players available are. I guess I could go ahead and do it now. I don't know how far behind me Kyle is, but Kyle, if you're seeing this, oh, there you go. He picks Kyle Connor. Yeah, Jack Eichel, Barkov, Bedard. These are all guys I really like in this range. I don't really want to be here and going with the center onlys. I like the defense route. My best defenseman here would actually be Dougie Hamilton all the way down here. I don't know if I'm going to reach that far. Timo Meier being down here, I think I'm going to go ahead and get Timo Meier. I love Timo Meier, especially in this format. I need some right wings, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I would reach, so you can see how I got these guys in later rounds, and I'm talking about them here at the 3-4 turn. Yeah, you have to adjust to the room that you're in, and I think that's what I'm doing here. Eichel fills categories. He's really good in this format. Barkov as well, really good in this format, but the shots on goal for Eichel push him up a little bit. I think I'm just going to take best player there. Unfortunately, I'm getting into some center stuff here, but I really wasn't feeling the right wingers. I think, yeah, it's a function of a sharper draft room where the wingers have come off a little bit earlier. And a lot of the players probably that I was so excited about in my that I was talking about in my last draft, people took note and they're taking them here. So full props to you guys for making good picks and forcing me into a spot. But yeah, again, it's another spot where I'm taking into account the fact that I do think like the Eichel, Barkov, Bedard tier is good enough beyond what I'm getting from the players at other positions for this particular format. So, in some other formats, I would have considered Jesper Bratt, or a more points heavy format only, for example. There would be some other formats where I'd consider other players. So yeah, it is a little bit specific to this format. In this particular mock draft, you can only draft what's in front of you, right, at this point. But yeah, it would be a spot where I would be willing to take a center, even though I have center left wings here. I am willing to do that just because I do think it's a tier and it's worth getting those players, even if I have to make some decisions later on and try to shoehorn things in around them. I do think in this draft we are going to see like the right wings dry up a little bit faster, the defensemen dry up a little bit faster. I think the sharp drafters in this room will cause that to happen a little bit more, and I'm expecting it. It will make our decisions harder for sure, but that's also part of what we can do here in this draft. I've given you kind of the softer draft with the first mock draft that I did. Now I'm doing the second one. And it's a sharper room. What do we do in a sharper room? We have to take the value, even if the value isn't the best positionally. If it is a tier break, if you are getting a player like Jack Eichel that in my opinion should never make it to the 3-4 turn, I think at that point you have to take him unless there's something really compelling that you can make the case for. There goes John Tavares. Very nice first pick of the 5th round. Somebody's listening for sure. All right, let's see what we got for the comments. Pepe says we would never do that. Well, nice. Sebastian, for faded center only, rank Lindholm, Heischer, Thomas, Scheifele, Horvat. Yeah, I ranked a bunch of those guys already. I honestly forget already how I did it. Again, without knowing the format, that would be a big part of this for me to figure it out for you. But probably Heischer, Scheifele, Lindholm, Horvat, Thomas. Unless it's like a points only scenario in which Thomas would come up a little bit, because I do think he's going to get points. It's just going to be a lot more assists, right? Shifting Shape says Kempe was a panic pick, not used to Yahoo. Fair enough. No worries. Vincent says, love your 0G strategy. Any thoughts on the 0D strat, especially on Cacuffle, when I feel that forwards are more heavily weighted? Yeah, forwards are more heavily weighted, I guess, in Cacuffle, mostly by virtue of the 2 extra utility spots in Cacuffle. In formats with extra utility spots or extra forward spots, that obviously raises the profile of the forwards relative to the defensemen. In a format like this, where you're only starting 6 forwards and you're starting 4 defensemen on any given night, that places a real premium on defense. I do think you're seeing some drafters react pretty appropriately here and chasing up some defensemen here. So, yeah, Charlie McAvoy going here. I think that's a sharp pick and one that I'd be making as well. I should probably stop talking and try to figure out who I'm going to pick here. I think Sergachev fits in this range. Cider fits this format a little bit better, but I don't think I want to go there just yet. It is rough already going down here. Hopefully Kyle leaves me Sergachev. Don't do it to me, Kyle. Okay, I get Sergachev. I'm going to use my time on the clock to figure out what else I want to do. I wouldn't mind getting another defenseman here, but there's nobody who's really jumping off the page for this format. Again, the room has done a good job soaking up value here. I do think Seth Jarvis makes a lot of sense here. Center right wing kind of gives me the other side of the eligibility coin there, so I don't mind that. Owen Tippett makes some sense for the format, but the points is a little bit points upside, I guess I should say, is a little bit more limited. So yeah, I think it will be Jarvis as my second here, unless somebody else really jumps out at me here. Yeah, I will go Jarvis here. We talked a little bit about Jarvis and his upside with Blake in the projection series. If you haven't watched the projection series on YouTube or listened to it on the podcast, Blake and I spent 16 hours going through our projections on every single team. Honestly, I think it's some of our best work and some of the most foundational stuff that you can have for your drafts this year. So yeah, set it to 2x speed, whatever you got to do, but I do think that it's worth getting through. Getting back to the question here, any thoughts on the 0D strategy? So yes, you're right to say that Cacuffle is a little bit more weighted that way because of the utility spots, which will more commonly be taken by forwards than by defensemen. However, I do think that the value over replacement for defensemen is still really strong, and so defensemen are still a target for me early on. The problem that you can get into by fading defensemen is that you really run the risk of putting in guys who are getting you next to nothing and getting absolutely caved in by other teams at that position. And unless you're really crushing at the forward positions and being above expectation at the forward positions, I think you can get left behind at defense in a way that hurts you more than the forwards help you, if that makes sense. Ian says Jeek is such good value in the 5th. Yeah, strong for this format as well. Shifting Shape says, wasn't listening on the Tavares pick, had him queued on my honor. Very nice. It just says, thanks for doing these, Nate. Great time and practice with good players in the mocks. Appreciate it. No problem. We're here for the people. Dylan asks, what kind of nasty stuff do I have to do to get into the best friends? He said toot, but I'm believing you meant to say tier there. Yeah, I mean, you can talk to Blake, but it was a long and arduous process. It's still like a monthly subscription thing. It's a significant investment, is what I will say. Vanzuli says, watched every second of those 16 hours. Love it. Yeah, I think that's honestly one of the best things that you can do. I mean, I'm biased, but I do think that it's probably the best content to set yourself up to win your leagues this year is those projection series episodes. Vendetta, I'm worried the Canes put Jarvis Nietzsche at center and Svetch play second line. It's possible. That would be really heartbreaking, but I would not put it past Rod Brind'Amour, given everything we've seen from him over the last little while. Yeah, that would be pretty heartbreaking. But Jarvis, yeah, I do think Jarvis could have ceiling even beyond what we saw last year. Played injured, torn rotator cuff since like November, I think. Played through the whole season, still was throwing hits, like unbelievable stuff. Really crazy, but yeah, mad respect to him, and I think he's well worth the swing in the 6th round where I got him, started the 6th. Okay, I'm going to have to start thinking a little bit again about what I'm going to do with this team. It's been a tough room. The defensemen are coming off for sure. We've had a few goalies. So Eric here, I'm not sure if Eric is one of ours. Eric, say hi if you're in the chat, but Eric took some early goalies. So that's a little bit unusual. We got a few goalies going in the 5th and 6th. So, yeah, a little bit earlier than a typical A&G draft, I guess. But let's see what I can do here. So yeah, obviously at this point, I've got a center only in Eichel. I've got center left wing. I've got center right wing. I've got lots of center eligibility, and so I am trying to round out my team a little bit. I will say there are lots of winger picks on Yahoo that I do like in the later rounds as well. So I'm not like freaking out about it. I'd love to add wingers. I'd love to add defense here. So I'm looking at both potential outcomes here and see what I can find. Seen a few players that I could be interested in for sure, players that fit the format that I'll be happy with. So, yeah, not too worried about it just yet. Yeah, definitely some goal scoring upside later that you can get that doesn't quite fit the format as well. But again, I've got the Kachuk, I've got the Meyer, Jarvis hits, Sergachev is a banger. I've got lots of shots on this team already, so I don't need to lean too heavily into that. I could go to, somebody who's not a big time shooter but fills out some other categories for me and feel okay with that with the way that I've got this team figured out right now. So yeah, I do feel comfortable with how I've left myself in a good spot, at least in terms of category coverage. I am trying to actively cover categories. I do think that's important in these leagues, but yeah, we'll see what we get to here. There's going to be a few options for sure. I may have to reach just a little bit if I want to go to the left wing, right wing, or I may just decide to completely push that. I'd be okay to do that. It wouldn't be the first time that I've done it. I like Slavkovsky, like the potential monstrous category coverage that you can get there, big time hitter as well. I want to take a look at the defenseman for sure. Montour, I think, makes a lot of sense for this team. Power play points, shots, hits, he's going to do all that. Hopefully he gets integrated quickly there. Definitely Ekblad can make some sense on this team. You're hoping for power play one if you take an Ekblad this early, but yeah. So we take Slavkovsky there, and I'll take Montour behind him, and I think I'll be happy with that. So yeah, it's a little thinner at defense than I usually like to be, but again, it's a sharp room, which is pushing that down. It's kind of where I expected to be, and there are still some defenders that I can get later. One thing that I am thinking about in scenarios like this is when the defense that I want are being picked ahead of me. I'm on the turn, so I'm also in a spot where I can't kind of plan ahead as well. I'm kind of have to take what's being given to me a little bit. In scenarios like that, one thing I will do, especially in a categories league, is I will consciously push the last defense slot till the very end and take one of the big time hitters. Take that Gudas, take Neil Pionk, take the Luke Shen, Arbor Jekaj. I can never say that name. I apologize ruining that man's last name. But yeah, just leave room on a roster like this where the defense hasn't gone the way I want it to, or I haven't really gotten the defenseman at value that I want to. One option that you do have open to you in a format like this is to wait on that a little bit and to just pick up a bit more of a specialist at that position. So that's definitely something that's on my radar in a scenario like this where it's a sharp room and I'm not getting the value that I want at that specific position. Let's go back into the comments. Eric says, none of my guys are popping up. Panic grab Bob. Fair enough. That happens to the best of us for sure. Alexis, I'm kind of curious to know your take on why we shouldn't be drafting Shesterkin around the 6th round. Well, first off, if you had Shesterkin last year, he was not great for a good chunk of the year, and then he was amazing for the last half of the year. That was probably great for you, but you took Shesterkin so high that it probably handcuffed the rest of your team, and his early performance early in the year in that part where Quick was getting a lot of starts, that may have been bad enough where it really submarined your team and you couldn't even drop Shesterkin because he's gonna, he's Igor Shesterkin. You feel really confident in him. You drafted him highly. You're not going to drop him, but he's basically not doing a lot for your roster. Goalies have this really unique ability in fantasy hockey to actively hurt your team. Where skaters can basically not help, but goalies can actively hurt your team and go negative. And so you did get that from Shesterkin to start the year last year. It was a big problem for a lot of Shesterkin teams. A lot of those Shesterkin teams never climb back out of it and were never able to recover. And that's a big time problem for me. Sixth round pick is still a premium pick in my opinion. I got Jarvis in my sixth round. Who did I take? Jarvis and Sergachev. Those are players I'm just not willing to sacrifice for goaltender when I know that on the waiver wire throughout the season, there's going to be Connor Ingram, there's going to be Joey Decord, there's going to be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, there's going to be Charlie Lindgren. These guys are going to pop up, and I'm confident in my ability, and you should be too if you're watching Apples and Geo's content, if you're tuning in for the waiver wire episodes for the goaltenders that we're going to be talking about all through the season. You should be confident in your ability to diagnose these situations and to see, who's taking over a net, who's playing really well, and to be the first to a lot of these goaltenders. You don't have to be the first to every single one. That's a common misnomer about 0G, that you have to get to the right goaltender, that you have to hit on those specific guys. There's multiple guys. You will be okay if you don't hit on every single one. You don't have to worry about that. So that's why I'm not into Shesterkin in the sixth round. In the Patron League last year, which is Categories League, I ended up taking, I think, Georgiev in, I believe it was the 10th round. Again, it was a big time Apples and Gino's family league, obviously the Patron League. Everybody's hardcore 0G in that league. And so the goaltenders were going super late. I decided at that point, it's Colorado. How bad can it be? It was pretty bad. He got a lot of volume. He wouldn't have if Colorado had realized that Justice Annunen was better than Georgiev last year. This year, Georgiev is moving down because I think people realize that he could be in for a similar situation. But yeah, it was a pretty unique scenario. I think that Georgiev actually even got the volume that he did to end the year because he was atrocious pretty much the entire season. I know he got better in the playoffs, but that didn't help your fantasy season. I think I'm done with the goaltenders early on. That's for sure. There are some defense in here that I could be into. Definitely not excited about it, but there are some defensemen here that I could be interested in taking. I'll throw in Noah Hannafin. I'll throw in Devin Taves. Hannafin could get top power play, so that definitely could be even like you could categorize that as a bit of a steal if he does. Let's go back here. Excuse me. I'm still getting better. I was sick for a long time last week, and the voice still hasn't quite recovered, and I've been doing this for an hour now. So I think I'll let Hannafin get selected there. And then I'll try to grab another winger here if I can. Prefer right wing eligibility. I like Kane. Definitely not a hitter, but power play points, shots, plus minus probably won't be great, but the rest should be there. Kyrou fits that bill as well. Is there anybody else down here? I love Ehlers, but left wing only. I already have Slavkovsky who's left wing only. I'm going to take Taves off, so if I auto, it does go there. Brian Rust is another good one that I really like and does fill categories as well. I think I'm going to take Rust, actually. I think I would take Rust over Kane. That might be a bit of a hot take, but I think he fills the categories a little bit better. The shots might be a little bit better. I mean, look at that roster. Tell me how Rust isn't stapled to Crosby all year long. Power play one, line one, playing 22 minutes a night. I think Rust is going to be really solid for fantasy this year, so I'm not going to be mad about that. So now I've filled out my wingers here. Even more so, I guess you could say. Probably Meyer's going to end up playing more so on the right side for me on this team. One of these center left wing guys will play on the left wing alongside Slavkovsky. Eichel will obviously be at center. Josh Belchier, in response to the Shesterkin in the 6th round, says #0G, that's why, for sure. Shifting Shape says goalies are the most volatile position. Quick even outperformed Igor for a decent stint last year. Yep, absolutely. Josh says Jack-Eye for Jack-Eye, however it's spelled. Okay, Jack-Eye. I will desperately try to remember that. I'm a very visual person, and so even when I hear it, it doesn't mean that's going to stick in my mind. Sharp Room, so I pulled the reach on Lauzon. Austin Matthews who hits. Hey, if you're about it, you're about it. I'm not personally about it, but I can understand. Those hits are crazy. Would you take goalies you know have a good playoff schedule? No, I would not. That doesn't enter into my mind at all when it comes to goalies. I fully expect that the goaltenders that I'm taking will come off my roster at some point throughout the season. I think that's the best way to play the position. I think that people who hold on to goalies for the entire season in the vast majority of cases, probably should have dropped their goalies at some point in the season. Shifting Shape says I was going Rust over Kane as well. There we go. If two of us were going to do it, that means it was the right pick, right? Right? Thank you. Vendetta says Rucker scares me with Rust. Not much, but he does. I don't think McGrarty's taking off Rust. If anything, he'd take Bunting off the other side, or Rust would go play left wing or something. I'd be Russ is the one with the most history there. If it was a new coach, then sure. Yeah, now you're thinking about what does a new coach think of all this. But Sullivan has loved Brian Rust and played the hell out of him every single time that he's been healthy, which has not been all the time. But yeah. If a rookie is scaring you off of a veteran who's played like 22 minutes a night for a current coach, I think my take is that you're overthinking it at that point. Okay, let's see what this team looks like. So I've got things more or less figured out. At this point, it kind of took a circuitous route to get here. Hopefully, obviously with this team, I'm hoping that Hannafin holds on to top power play there in Vegas pretty much the whole season. Whether or not that comes to pass is definitely up for debate, but that's what I'm hoping with this team. I would like to add some right-wing eligibility to this team still. What do I have? I've got 4 left-wing eligible players. I've got 4 center eligible players, and I've got 3 right-wing eligible players. I would love to have another left-wing, right-wing. I've only got 1 at the moment, so that would be a nice target for me, but they're probably all gone because of all the sharp drafters in this room. Yeah, they pretty much are. What are you guys doing to me? Trevor Moore, that would feel like a bit of a reach, but he would be left wing, right wing. So there is that. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much of anything, is there? Wow, you guys have really drained this thing dry. Tolvanen can make some sense, I guess. Just given the format with the hits, the plus minus could hurt. He could be deprioritized by Bilesma. It could be a nothing. Toffoli, if I can stomach the plus minus. How does this team look for plus minus? I haven't been paying as much attention since the early rounds. It's not as good as my last team on the plus minus front, that's for sure. So I would prefer to not go that route. Dylan Genther is absolutely buried down here and should not be, so that might have to be a route I go as well. Genther is absolutely one of these guys that is buried in Yahoo that you should be targeting in every draft, for sure. Let's see what I can do here. Yeah, there's still some defensemen here that I could be interested in, but I'm also interested in the Gudis types or whoever else is around. So I think I will take Genther here with one of these picks. Genther, and then Justin Folk is an option too. I do still think he's the most likely player to take the power play there, and he does fill out the other categories. So that's a decent option for me as well. I'll take Dylan Genther because I don't think he'll come back in this room. And then I will think heavily about whether I want to go Falk or one of these other guys. Toffoli does make a lot of sense. Plus minus is rough, but I think I can get by. Falk would be the other one that's tough to get past. There's still Chikrin out here. There's still the heavy banger options like the Gudis and the Shen and Jackai that I could go. I think that I will go with Toffoli here and get that left wing, right wing. I do think that's worth getting here. Does hurt the plus minus most likely, but I think Toffoli, maybe not like a 30-30 season, but a 25-25 season with great shots, solid hits, power play points should all be there. Yeah, maybe I take a bit of a haircut in the plus minus, but I think it's worth it to get the left wing, right wing eligibility this late. Mitchell says, with pick 12 like you have, Nate, is it fine or a little risky to go Timo Meyer and Svetch at pick 36 and 37? I would do it. Yeah, again, depending on the format, but Bangers Cats, like this league that we're in here, I think that's where I would value them for sure. If you think that in your league that you can push one or both to the next round, then that's something I would consider. Maybe it's a spot where you take one and you push the one that you think may come all the way back around to you to try to swing for the fences and get that massive value. Yeah, those are the considerations I would have in draft. Definitely part of it is knowing your league, trying to evaluate, in like you've heard me talk about it so much, how my drafting strategy has changed a fair bit based on the fact that I know that this mock draft, the people in this mock draft are sharper than they were in the previous mock draft. And they're taking the players that I want to be taking. And so my strategy has changed in this. And your strategy in a situation like that should change as well. When you're in the pick 12, it's going to be harder in a sharp league for you to get players to come all the way back around. That's just natural, that's normal. And so you have to think about that. But if your league is fairly soft and you think that you can do it, I think that it's totally fine to try to push one, take one, push one, especially if there's another option there that you actually do really like. Maybe Hedman is there or something like that. There's another player that you really like. I would definitely do that. FF Diallo making an appearance. Thomas Sandstrom of value this year. Yes, for the first year since what, 90, what year was that? I've got to look it up now. Thomas Sandstrom, when did he last play hockey? He's 60 years old, so it's got to be the 90s, right? He last played in 98, 99. Okay. All right. So he scored 32 points at 58 games in 98, 99. There you go. I do think Thomas Sandstrom is a tremendous value this year. Thanks, Tyler. All right. Let's see what we got here. I'd still got Falk in the queue. I'd be happy to take him if he fell. Brady Shea, actually, I think is fine. I don't think he's going to get a lot of power play points, obviously, with Yossi ahead of him. Or I could go the Jack Eye route. I think Jack Eye probably has more of a role. Jordan Harris moving out in the Line A trade could open more of a role for Jack Eye this year, and that could mean even more hits. He could have like 300 hits this year. That's definitely a possibility. Definitely not going to do much for you in the other categories, but he can definitely hit people. Bone Byram, I still love this player. Does fill some categories, not shots and plus minus and power play points, but the rest of it is nice. Don't mind that. Let's go back, check this all out. What do we got? What do we have? We have the Jeff Skinner pick here. I still don't know if I want a left wing only. Have the Patrick Laine pick here. I think the first one will be Justin Folk. I think I'm happy with that at this point in the draft. Nick Schmaltz is down here. Center right wing would be another nice pick up for this team. So yeah, we'll let Justin Folk come off here, and I'll start to throw some people into the queue. Jeff Skinner makes some sense. I already have one left wing only. I don't like to have too many of those. Mark Stone this far down, like sure, and he has back issues. He has whatever LTIR magic the Vegas Knights are going to pull this year with him. But at the same time, like he's going to do stuff. Arturi Lehkonen is also a good pick here, but I think I will go Mark Stone. That is my third right wing only, which I don't love. But I think there's also a chance that Russ picks up a left wing eligibility, or Genther does at some point, so that could help. But yeah, Stone, this late, he's going to be on the top power play. He's going to score a bunch of points. Like he's going to be on a 70-point pace when he is playing, so I'm not going to be mad at that. To get him in the 14th round, yeah, I'm going to take it. And that's what I mean. You can get those points later on and feel pretty good about it. So I filled out the bench here, just some goalie spots here. I don't even feel like I have to take a goalie here. Thatcher Demko, people fading completely with his news. I don't know. I could get behind a 15th round Demko. There he goes. But yeah, that is a tough situation for sure. I have never had to make that kind of decision for myself. I'm usually not in a position to grab the Demkos of the world. But with him falling, maybe there will be a spot this year where I have to make that decision. Interesting. Alexis says Jack I might split with Struble. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility as well. Yeah, you can probably figure out how that split's going to look or who's winning that based on camp, and then make a decision on if you're drafting or holding on to Jack I early in the season. Dom D, how many D by round 6 you'd say? I wouldn't want to put a hard and fast rule on it, but in general, I guess I would say I'd like to have a couple, ideally. My ideal scenario would be to have a bunch of left wing, right wing, and a couple of defensemen. by round 6. That would be a spot where I'd feel pretty good about it. In competitive leagues, probably 12 to 15. Oh, do you mean, sorry, Tom, do you mean how many defensemen will be off the board by then, or how many defensemen do you want to have on your team by round 6? So Mitchell's saying in competitive leagues, probably 12 to 15 defensemen come off the board by round 6. Yeah, that could make some sense. I guess I'd have to do some thinking about those players that might be there to try to figure out what that might look like. But that sounds reasonable to me. I think that sounds reasonable. So yeah, yeah, goaltenders. Yeah, just trying to pick up somebody who I think is going to be decent. I think Anderson is still the incumbent, so he probably gets the first start. In a league like this, where there is goals against average and save percentage, I would like to have at least one guy who I think is going to have a good goals against average and save percentage, which Anderson should have in that Carolina system. Yes, he's made of glass, but I'm not treating goaltenders as something that I need to hang on to for the full season. So if he goes down to injury, I'll be okay, but I think he'll be good while he plays. Jordan Bennington's still here. That could be okay. Probably going to get some decent volume again this year, but St. Louis looks pretty terrible. Tristan Jarry, Connor Ingram, all feel similarly tiered to me, to be honest with you. I guess Bennington is the most likely to at least start with a lot of volume. So to get the volume to pair with Anderson, who I think has the rates, let's go with Bennington. Don't feel strongly about any goaltenders if you have not been able to tell. All right. The team is Jack Hughes, Brady Tkachuk, Timo Meier, Yuri Slafkovsky, Seth Jarvis, Brian Rust, defenseman, Mikhail Sergachev, Brandon Montour, Noah Hannafin, Justin Falk. Feel good about that. Could still end up with 4 power play 1 defensemen despite getting sniped on a lot of defenseman value in this draft. Goaltenders are Anderson and Binnington. And on the bench, I have Eichel, who's obviously not going to be on the bench for much, but he's down here because of the center left wings I took early. Dylan Guenther, Tyler Toffoli, Mark Stone. Stone with Eichel, it's a little bit of a stack if you want to call it that. I guess I have Hannafin too. I didn't even actually think about that when I took Stone. Maybe I would have made a different decision there in that if I had taken time to think that one through a little bit better. But yeah, I guess I'm not going to be mad about it with getting Stone where I got him in the 14th. That is the team. Vincent says, thanks for a great mock draft. Excellent practice for the real thing. Thoughts on my draft at pick 7. So you had Rantanen, Nylander, Hyman, Bratt, Uyghur, Sider, Larkin, Vasilevsky, Swayman in the 8th and 9th, Kyrou, Taves, Nurse, Kadri, Skinner, Celebrini, McTavish. Yeah, some upside late. Don't mind it. The Taves Nurse, kind of later round defenseman just to fill it out. Don't mind that. Definitely went heavy periffs with Uyghur and Sider. Sider I don't think I love in the 6th because yes, he's going to give you hits, but the shots are not terrific. The plus minus I don't think is going to be terrific. You still took him ahead of a lot of defensemen that I think are going to outscore him, even if he does have the top power play. And if he doesn't have top power play, then he's also hurting you in power play points. So that's too rich for me on Sider. But I love Larkin in the 7th. Yeah, I think it's a strong team for sure. If Vasilevsky and Swayman pan out the way that many expect them to, then I think you're probably laughing at the goalie position. Yeah, it's just I think that probably at least one of those disappoints you at times throughout the season, if not the full thing. So it's a solid team for sure. All right, let's see. We got a whole bunch of comments coming in at the end. 91 Pulp says, Eichel and Stone IR stack. You got to have the IR stack. The Reeves pick, yeah, the Reeves pick at the end here. Shifting Shapes, yeesh, you guys humbled me. Don't even look at my squad. Okay, I'm not looking at it. Not looking at it. Not staring at it right now. Okay. Ledman, could you please review me? Pick 5, got screwed on defense, didn't we all? Kucherov, I mean, you got Darlene. That's not a bad spot. Reinhardt, Barkov, get those two together. Boldy in the 5th, Fiala in the 6th, Skinner in the 7th. It's too early for Skinner for me. I would rather have Vasilevsky or Swayman probably over Skinner. Batherson 8th, Ekblad 9th, Luke Hughes 10th. I'm not in love with Luke Hughes, especially for this format. You need him to be a big time breakout this year in terms of points for him to be worth that, in my opinion. Brock Nelson, love that. Nikolai Ehlers, love that. Radko Gudas, obviously going for the hits there, getting the upside with Thatcher Demko in the 14th, love that. Michael Bunting is a good 15th round pick. Troy Terry in the 16th, I'm happy with. Get you some off nights, get into your lineup. Yeah, I think it's a solid team. You took what the draft gave you. You did what I was talking about with getting the peripheral defenseman late when you did get sniped on D. So I think that's the right way to play it in that particular scenario. I wouldn't be mad about this team. I like Darlene in the second there. Let's see. Joe does stuff. Thanks for the draft. Wasn't too happy with my draft. I was ninth. Do a quick look at that. Matthew Tkachuk, Evan Bouchard, Chris Kreider. Don't love Kreider in the third. Wyatt Johnson in the fourth. I'd probably try to push him. I know you probably couldn't in this room, but I'd probably try to push him in most drafts. Hellebuck out of the fifth. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea, as you've heard many times already so far. Morgan Riley sixth. Nugent Hopkins seventh. Hagel eighth. Nietzsche ninth. Forsling 10th. Cousins, Ben, Bennett, Cooley, Pionk, Gustafson in the last round. Yeah, I think the third and the fourth is where it went wrong for me personally, and the fifth. This kind of Kreider, Johnston, Hellebuck. I think I like Kreider and Johnston. Don't get me wrong. I think Johnston has a ton of upside. It's just in the fourth round, I'm not ready to take on the upside yet. I'd rather have the Barkov. I'd rather have the Verhaeghe. That's where I'd rather be taking some solidified stuff. And if I'm going to go for upside, I'm going to go for Connor Bedard, basically, because he has real 100-point upside. He's going to get skated 20 plus minutes immediately, where Johnson has a few more hoops to jump through to hit his true ceiling scenario, in my opinion. Connor Hellebuck, yeah, right here, I think I would have wanted to go for one of these defensemen that went off in this run, or yeah, like my picks for Sergachev and Jarvis, I would have preferred either of those there. A few different ways that I would have gone instead of Hellebuck in the fifth. Other than that, I think it was a solid draft. Eric says, this was a great time, y'all. Thanks for a great practice round. Amazing you can narrate the entire draft, Nate. Yeah, I do my best. The more you do it, the better you get. Wanzuli says, it's the eighth seed. Okay, so that's Makar, Forsberg, Svechnikov, Verhaeghe, McAvoy. Yeah, I love that start through five. Barzal, Trocheck, Sanderson, Besser. Still not mad at it. Thomas in 10th. Thomas is terrible in this format. 10th round, though, like, it's hard to be mad. Sorokin, good upside in the 11th. Harley, 12th. Duchesne, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Kraus, Saka. Yeah, I think that's strong. Yeah, strong draft. I like that draft a fair bit. Got some good dual eligibility through your forwards as well. Yep, nothing to be mad about there. Boone Jenner, 139 a steal if he's healthy. Absolutely. Mitchell said I made that last Revo pick for you, Nate. Thank you. I appreciate the gesture. Alexis says, was tough. Every defenseman was going 20 picks early. Yeah, that was tough. Who'd you end up with defenseman? Yeah, you went for Layton Hudson late, Shane Theodore. I mean, Shane Theodore in the ninth. If you get stop power play, you're probably going to be loving life. Hamilton in the fifth, I love. Faber in the seventh, I think makes some sense. Yeah, you didn't do too bad for yourself. If we're all unhappy, Liz Lebang, if we're all unhappy, must have been a good draft. Absolutely. Jackson says, I don't want to come on too strong, but I love you, Nate. Yeah, that's it's on the borderline. That's what I'll say. You're right there. But I love you too, buddy. Jackson says, if you're doing reviews, was pick number 2. We can take a quick look. McKinnon, Marner, Thompson, Ovechkin, Dobson, Jeek, Carlson, Lafreniere, Letang, Marchand, Gossa, Spare, Wolin, Allmark in the 12th and 13th for the goaltenders. Zuccarello, Moore, Pietrangelo. Yeah, I'm happy about that team. Filled categories decently well. Maybe a little light on hits. Yeah, maybe a little light on hits, but I am not mad about that team whatsoever. Move and Groove team, Kyle, please. Kyle is the 11th spot. You're the one who took Kaprizov from me, so I automatically hate you. Roman Yossi in the second. Feels good. Kyle Connor, Sebastian Aho, Travis Konechny. Not tough to be mad at that start. Carlson, Heischer, Might be a little bit early for those two, but not mad at it. I was eyeing Tuck, but I decided I wanted to go the Slavkovsky route just to get the hits. Doughty in the 9th feels like a good spot there. Horvat in the 10th, love it. Wilson probably makes sense in the 11th in this format. Chicker in the 12th. Achushin for the stash in the 13th, don't mind that. Line A, and then the 2 late goaltenders. That's the correct way to draft. Yes, it pains me to say this because he took Kaprizov from me, but I do like this draft a fair bit. All right, that is going to conclude this live stream. I am going to move over. If you are a patron and you're in the live stream, I'm going to be doing the patron only discussion right after this. So yeah, I'll be adding everybody in the Discord, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll get everybody in there. And then I'm going to be going through even more draft strategy, some of the topics that I've already touched on here, but definitely a whole bunch more, and just taking open questions from you guys. So if you're a patron and you want to keep the party going, then that's where I am going to be. All right, that's going to be all that we've got for this episode. So hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. Didn't talk about any advanced stats, so I don't have to do the natural stat trick bit, but many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.